Are we ever going to be over this family feud in New Jersey, guys? Because last night's episode, it doesn't seem like things are getting any better. And if anything, watching some of this back, I think it's going to make it worse. We need to talk about this. Glanville got Juan's phone number. Just go ahead. Beginning of this was
sweet
exclusive. Nicola, everything going
the whole day.
over the weekend. Unfortunately,
Very sort of hot.
all right, welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that we are almost through the week, but you know, New Jersey is definitely a franchise that has always been family-based, family-oriented, and one of the few franchises that actually pay the husbands like they do the Housewives. So it is unique in that way. And if you've watched the show as long as I have, you know that since season 2, the whole family issue and dynamic between Teresa and Joe and Melissa have been rocky. So much so that this season that we're in currently, leading up to it, BravoCon, media, podcasts, I mean, they both were hurling out different accusations, different points of view. But last night, watching the episode back, it was really clear that Joe just doesn't have it in him to keep doing this fight, right? And I know a lot of you are saying it's getting old. Melissa is this, Joe is that, Teresa is not focusing on them. All Melissa and Joe do is talk smack about Teresa. The thing is, guys, we don't know what is actually happening. They film a lot, and that's not just for this show, that's all of them. So I don't necessarily go off of what I'm seeing in those situations, only because Teresa is going to get a more favorable edit, in my opinion. So if she was talking about Joe and Melissa at the same pace that they're showing Melissa and Joe talking about Teresa and Louis, then yeah, I think we would be in a different spot, because it would just, you would see that it's not just one-sided, even though the show is only showing us the one side, which is Melissa and Joe are only shown when they're talking poorly about Teresa. I get it. But I want to put into context, because last night, Teresa had her housewarming party, Love Bubble housewarming party. And yes, Joe was invited. Yes, Melissa was invited. But, you know, I don't know about you guys, if you've ever been in a situation, and it doesn't have to be family oriented, it could be friends, could be whatever, where you were invited to something merely to check a box, right? That is how it felt watching this all play out last night to me. First of all, I think it's great that Louis is trying to facilitate some sort of resolve or some neutrality into the situation. I appreciate that. I also appreciate that he comes from a family that understands this type of conversation, understands the nuances. And he's very good with centering Teresa in those moments, because, you know, if you watched, you saw Teresa was like eating it up. Joe was rude. I can't believe he was rude to you. Why would he do that? But the truth of the matter is that for Louis to have to basically walk Teresa through a phone conversation with her own brother, to me, there's bigger issues. Because yes, I agree, they shouldn't rehash everything that's happened in the past. That's why I'm not going to bring up things from the past that they both have done, because at this point, it doesn't matter. Teresa's moved on. She's married. Melissa and Joe, they're moving on. They built a new house. They're settling in. So I think what would be great is if they could both somehow work through the fact that whatever was in the past needs to be left in the past, and they need to look and walk forward. I think that would be a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, because this is a show, they've got to go into all these angles and they've got to have storylines. I get that. However, I do feel that Joe and Melissa they're being portrayed in a way that may not necessarily be the case. I believe that both things can be true. I can believe that Teresa feels the way she feels about how Joe and Melissa were not sticking by her when Louis came on last season, as much as a lot of people may disagree with that. That's how Teresa felt. And that's right. That is true. Okay. So I'm not going to argue the semantics of why she shouldn't feel that way. I'm also not going to say that Melissa hasn't endured a lot of crazy, chaotic behavior while being entangled on the show with a Teresa. It is very clear that these two were not besties before they got on the show together. So I'm not going to sit here and expect them to become besties now. But I do think when you are a part of a bigger family unit and you look at the context, like Joe doesn't have any other family now. It's just Teresa. And then this whole situation's happening. It's separating families, and it's not just separating Joe and Teresa and Melissa, it's separating their kids. And it was sad to see Gia talk about that last night in her awkward run-in with Melissa, which was awkward for both sides. Melissa knows that they have hate for them. In some regard, you can sense it. So yeah, it was awkward, but I do think that bringing the kids into the narrative makes it messier. And I know a lot of you guys feel like they're adults now. They should be able to speak on their own opinions and feelings. I agree, but maybe not so loudly on a reality TV show. Because I mean, the thing is that you can have an issue with your uncle. You can say that I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that, but it just starts to come off like we're building an army up against each other when we do that. Anyways, I'm ranting on. What I'm trying to get at is I feel like there's context to why Joe didn't show up last night. And I know everyone's saying, well, if you didn't show up, then that's your problem. Yeah, maybe if we are going to be so blanket statement about it, yes, it is his problem. He clearly decided he wasn't going to go, so that's on him. However, Teresa should understand why he feels that way. If she wants him to understand where she's coming from, she needs to understand where he and Melissa are coming from. And it's not because she's going to agree with it. Okay. This took me years of therapy to understand. I don't have to agree with the way that you felt, but I can understand it and I can hear it and I can empathize with it. That makes more of a gesture to move on than sitting there and arguing back and forth about your feelings not being completely true because I didn't do XYZ. That turns into a defensive conversation, which is what ends up happening when Teresa and Joe try to hash anything out. So with that being said, I do feel like before the season even started, things were ramping up to make Melissa and Joe look bad. And if I'm honest, it almost feels like someone has like made it their life's mission to write things in the press or talk about things now. You have people coming out of the woodworks like Jacqueline's like, you know, she surfaced and she's got all this intel that she's sharing. And, you know, they get mad because Teresa disagrees with the fact that Melissa and Joe were there for her kids when she was in jail. And this whole podcast episode comes up where I guess Melissa said that, you know, she and Joe helped put food on their table when Teresa was away. And I think a lot of people are looking at it like, how dare you say that? And that could be pride because Teresa doesn't really care for Melissa anyways. So the fact that Melissa's going around parading that she's the reason why they had food on their table. Listen, facts are the facts. Okay, guys? When Teresa was going in to jail or prison, whatever, okay, Joe Giudice, Juicy Joe, did not have income coming in, okay? So when she was going away, they literally, if you guys remember, they did a whole like recasting. We had the twins, we had Siggy, who else did we have? Like, they could have gotten rid of Melissa and Joe and just been like, okay, well, we don't need, if I'm going off of people saying if Melissa didn't have Teresa, she'd have no storylines. That's not true. I think because the fact is that this is a big elephant in the room, it's the biggest issue there, it's the easiest one to grab onto. But I will say that they weren't saying it to throw it in Teresa's face or the kid's face. I think they were trying to make a point to say, we were your family. We stood by your husband when you went into prison. We did this spinoff show to get him income. Okay. That's what they mean by being there. I don't think they meant that they were there for them on a daily basis, packing lunches, doing what they need to do. Now, did they stop by and check in off camera? Sure, but they still have a dad at home. I mean, let's get real here. Like, it's not Melissa and Joe's responsibility to ensure everything is good with the kids. Joe is at home. That's the way it was set up. So I do not see the problem with pointing out the obvious. Yes, they did help Joe get that spinoff, because the truth of the matter is, if they didn't sign on to do Teresa Checks In or whatever the spinoff was called, Joe wouldn't have been able to carry that show by himself. Have you seen him? He can't hold a scene barely by himself with the kids. He's awkward. I don't even feel like he likes being on the show. So they needed a Melissa and Joe as a connection through Teresa to bring in, stories and make it riveting enough that they could actually air it and make some money. I don't see the problem in that. I think the issue is everyone's feelings are hurt, and they're hurt to a point where just talking about it is not enough, which is why I do agree, leave it in the past. Now, moving on from all of that, we did have some other drama. Jennifer Aydin was busted calling up Rachel and Danielle and trying to wait, was it Rachel? It was Rachel, not Danielle. It was Rachel and Jen Fessler. Jennifer Aydin being messy as always. Gotta love Jennifer Aydin. You love to hate her, or you just love her. But she was being messy, and she got called out on it. And her and Rachel had a little back and forth that we did see in the trailer, where she, tells her to basically don't let the door hit you in the butt on your way out. But all in all, guys, this season's really going to be around Melissa, Joe, and Teresa. And this whole story, it's clear that things are not in a good space. They are not in good, they're not in a good space together. So watching this back, I feel like it's just going to drum up more animosity towards each other. It's going to bring up old wounds. So whatever movement they could have made, the show kind of sets it backwards, in my opinion. But that's life. That's part of being on the show, right? All in all, I think the episode, I would rate it out of 10. I'd give it a 7. I think that I'm really more interested in getting to know this Danielle more. I'm loving her. I am liking Rachel a little bit. She seems still a little bit more cold and reserved, but Danielle's bubbly. I love her spirit. I love her energy. I love what she brings to the table. And I do like that these girls are getting in the mix. I love that, because usually it takes them a while to warm up because they're a little hesitant. I love that they're jumping in. I love that they're getting into the action, so much so that you could tell when Rachel was going off on Jennifer in the episode, you could see Dolores is like, she was almost like a happy mom. She's like, oh, good for you. You're new. You know how to, the assignment. I get it. Okay, I love it. So that's the exciting piece. So I mean, yes, we'll see other aspects of the drama between Jennifer and Margaret and the whole allegation that comes up with Melissa later in the season. Well, it seems like it starts next week where it starts to come up. But I want to know what you guys think of this, specifically the Teresa, Louis, Joe, and Melissa situation, without bringing up past items in this present time, or at least on the show. Like, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you feel like Teresa misspoke when she said chosen family, knowing that her brother wasn't there? Is that sending a bat signal when you're saying this on national TV? I don't know. Is Melissa playing victim? Let me know down below. And until the next video, you guys, I will talk to you next time. Bye.